All right. Well, let's talk about a movie that came out and is definitely a movie. And I wouldn't say this movie necessarily is a feel good movie, but it is certainly interesting nonetheless. The movie is the 2026 horror movie Obsession. Now, anybody who has dealt with relationships knows that the greatest fear ever is that something in the vein of this will happen. Obviously, some people are more attracted to others, and relationships are a very touchy subject with some people. And anybody who has dealt with a psychotic ex knows that this is a horror movie straight from hell. The movie has a pretty good male lead, acting upon the fact Michael Johnson as Bear, who is in love with this girl, Nikki Freeman. And yeah, it starts off as a pretty box standard teen drama. I mean, I don't know, they're like, I think they're like 20s, 20 somethings, in kind of like a dark, moody, anywhere USA town. And yeah, the guy becomes absolutely in love with this chick and can't make his move, but absolutely tries probably the worst idea ever, using a wishing willow to win her heart over. And careful what you wish for is definitely a thing in any situation. And it turns out to be an absolute nightmare for him that, ultimately ends in tragedies all over the place. So let's talk about this movie. Now, without getting into spoiler territory, I must say the film is very dark. Not only just the premise and the setting, but the whole over brooding atmosphere. It really, really, really isn't a feel good movie. It's very dark and grungy and gory and silly at parts, and just kind of has this strange ambiance of twisted modern kids, dealing with love and relationships in the most horrific way possible. So yeah, I would say it's absolutely a depressing ass movie. I actually couldn't even finish it the one night. I was just like, okay, we're done here, and then I finished the other like 40 minutes or whatever another day. It's just a movie that's kind of icky. Now I know that this movie will be popular with the horror younger relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend sitting on the couch watching a horror movie type thing, because it really seems to be targeting that group of people. It is a horror movie. There's lots of horror elements to the movie. Like I said, it's just a very dark, creepy, jump scary, just it just makes you feel icky all over. So yeah, I mean, as someone who's dealt with a few psychotic women in his past, I definitely know the greatest fear of men and how it feels to have a psychotic ex. It just like it really speaks that. Now, of course, it goes way more into the extreme later on in the movie, but the first little bit is like you could almost say that there are actual guys who've experienced this, and yeah, Psycho Eyes Nikki definitely rings true to the real world. I think that speaks for, both sides of the spectrum, like one person becomes so invested in a relationship, especially someone's first relationship, is that like there is the potential that they will become obsessed. Men and women are have strange attraction levels to one another, and if one far exceeds the others, or even lo and behold, one wants to break up with the other one, and the other one doesn't isn't amicable in this situation, it can quickly go downhill quick. So yeah, the movie itself is very dark. It deals with it's like I said, it's not only just the horror aspects of the movie, but it's just very grungy. The town is very dilapidated and old feeling. Every scene is dark or brooding at night. It really, its cinematography and the way it's shot and the way the movie is presented is just this very deep, moody story. And I think that it is a strength of it because, like I said, it is a horror movie. It does feel very creepy at parts, even though you're just dealing with, quote unquote, a silly wishing guy makes a wish. But the wishes even get into other things as another wish is made and another wish is made. So I mean, obviously there's different elements, but it isn't played with as much as like it could have been. That there's like people actually making wishes and they actually come true. And I I hate to break it to you, but if there was such a thing as a wishing willow, there's probably guys that would use it to get hot chicks, and probably backfire in this similar fashion. And isn't that a hilarious thing as well? But I think Michael Johnston is actually a really good actor. He's likable, he's cool, he's just a very nice dude. And I think this could be a breakout role for him because he is an interesting person. He has a lot of emotions in his face. Nikki was just, played almost the perfect psychotic ex to a T. So I mean, there's definitely that, but I would say Michael Johnson really impressed me with his acting chops here. This has to be his breakout role, and I would expect to see him in a lot more. Now, I mean, this movie is an absolute success story. It had a budget of about $750,000, which is crazy low, and it proves that this movie can be like amazingly micro budget horror film, so to speak. It grossed $500 million worldwide, and it obviously is catered towards like the younger crowd who is new to navigating relationships. And this is a topic of that, and this is like a horror movie topic that comes up with new relationships. So I think this is a movie that is going to be a breakout role for him because it proves that you don't need these elaborate $250 million budgets that Hollywood has for Avengers and whatever, and it's just like 90% green screen. You can make a movie that's thought provoking that is only under $1 million, which is crazy to think of. Now, $750,000 is an insane amount of money for anyone, but in the realm of movies, yeah, I mean it's insane. So yeah, I would say everybody involved in this project has really showed up the greater establishment, and we're seeing more of that with like YouTubers making movies and stuff. We're in an exciting time for movies because there's a lot of garbage being produced, but there's this, and directors like Quentin Tarantino saw long ago, and throughout history of movie making, there's always been this notion that you just have to have a cool idea, and you just has to be shot right, and it just has to have the passion from everybody involved to actually make something that is interesting. And this movie was pretty interesting. I was interested in the concept. I heard people talking about it, and I was like, let's watch that. It's interesting. Is this my favorite type of movie? Not really. Dark brooding 20 something year olds getting into a horror situations in relationships and notions of that matter. Not really my favorite, but I can't help but praise the interesting nature of this movie and just how well it was pulled off. It's grotesque and it comes to a very, very dark ending. And it's those types of movies where it's like, it's not, and I don't want to spoil it too much. I mean, you can go see it. It's fairly recent, so it is spoiler worthy. But yeah, essentially, like at the end, like there's no great ending. But I mean, it's intention. It's kind of a creepy horror movie. It makes sense, and at the end of the day, it does what it needs to do by making you feel very uncomfortable. So yeah, that's my quick and interesting review of Obsession. It was not a bad movie at all. It is thorough 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10 depending on your preference. And normally these types of movies are just kind of cringe and stupid. And yeah, there's slightly irking moments at parts in this movie. But overall, it was a pretty fascinating watch, and I think it's worth seeing. It's a horror movie that came out with an incredible financial success story, and just kind of shows that anybody can make movies if they come up with a good enough idea. And it really harkens to the 20-something-year-olds navigating the relationship world in today's, society, and the fear that someone's going to end up with a psychotic ex. And everybody, I don't know if everybody, but, it's pretty common for, things to go off the rails in relationships. And anybody who's dealt with a psychotic ex-girlfriend knows exactly what Bear is going through in this movie. So yeah, that's my review on Obsession, and check it out. It's fairly interesting.